scripture text from the Gospel according to St. Luke, chapter 22, from verse number 39 to 53. Let's all rise for the reading of the Word of God. St. Luke chapter 22. Let me read it. Verse number 39. Coming out, he went to the Mount of Olives, as he was accustomed, and his disciples also followed him. When he came to the place, he said to them, "Pray that you may not enter into temptation." Look at your neighbor. Say, neighbor, pray that you may not enter into temptation. Look at there's a difference between the temptation and the test.
Yes, sir.
Okay? In a temptation, you are tempted by what you like and what you love, but yet moral values don't allow you to do that. Let me say it again. You are tempted by what you love doing.
Yes, sir.
What you like doing, but yet moral values don't allow you. There are certain principles of life that do not allow you to do such kind of thing. But you are tested by what you don't like. Job didn't want his children to die.
For the test.
It was a test. So
That's
if you
powerful.
see anything that you like doing, coming to you, yet you know doing it, it's wrong, that's a temptation. But you see anything coming to you that you don't like, you wouldn't ask for, that's a test. It's a simple step. Okay?
Yeah.
Verse 1. And he was withdrawn from them about a stone's throw, and he knelt down and prayed, saying, "Father, if it is your will, take this cup away from me. Nevertheless, not my will,
but
yours be done."
Amen.
Then an angel appeared to him from heaven, strengthening him. And being in agony, I want you to look at that very well. Being in agony, he prayed more earnestly. Then his sweat became like great drops of blood falling down to the ground. When he rose up from prayer and had come to his disciples, he found them sleeping from sorrow. Then he said to them, "Why do you sleep? Rise and pray, lest you enter into temptation." Look at your neighbor and say, "You're not forced into temptation, you will enter." And while he was still speaking, behold, a multitude, and he who was called Judas, one of the 12, went before them and drew near to Jesus to kiss him. Look at your neighbor. Say, neighbor, be careful of lips that have been advanced to you.
Come on, Bishop.
Verse number 48. Look at the other neighbor and say, enemies have better kisses. But Jesus said to him, "Judas, are you betraying the Son of Man with your kiss?" When those around him saw what was going to happen, they said to him, Lord, shall we strike with the sword? Look at the one behind you. I say, where did the sword come from? I thought they were disciples.
Yes, sir.
They had sword.
Yeah.
But they were disciples. What's wrong with these guys? And one of them struck the servant of the high priest and cut off his right ear. But Jesus answered and said, permit even this. And he touched his ear and healed him. Then Jesus said to the chief priests, captains of the temple, and the elders who had come to him, have you come out as against a robber with swords and gloves? When I was with you daily in the temple, you did not try to seize me. But this is your hour and the power of darkness.
My God.
Apostle, I don't know what you've done to these people, but they seem to conclude messages even before we start. They can make you preach everything that you have. I'm telling you, they can make you construct messages that you don't do. You have cooked them well. Yeah,
Bless
they're
the
from a
Lord.
good pot. It's so difficult when you are preaching to people who are hearing what you're saying, yet they don't want to show you they're hearing.
Hey.
And you are sweating. So let's sweat together.
That's right, Bishop.
Let's sweat together. I can't sweat alone. Hey, but you guys are cooked, man.
Amen.
I wish I could take you to Pretoria.
No.
Must get my guys to come and marry. I will see. They will remain.
It will be captured here. Always.
2 Samuel chapter 9. From verse 1. I love this church. Please do me a favor, okay? If it takes long from now and you see that he's not inviting me, please remind him. Do you know how much I'm preparing? I mean, when I come here, do you know how much I prepare? I'm trying to be invited again. So if he doesn't invite me, you must ask. And then, and if he tells you that, no, that one, no. Just tell him, well, if you have your differences, it's fine, but this is church. Enjoy this place. Okay, what was the verse again? Oh, 9. Yeah, let's go. I love this place. When I'm here, yeah, I'll be back soon. But I think I've already messed up. Okay, are you there?
Amen.
2 Samuel chapter 9. Now David said, is there still anyone who is left of the house of Saul, that I may show him kindness for Jonathan's sake? I want you to look at your neighbor and say, neighbor, God can do things for you. God can do things for you. But not for you. But not for you. For somebody else.
Come on, Bishop.
Verse number 2. And there was a servant of the house of Saul, whose name was Ziba. So when they had called him to David, the king said to him, are you Ziba? He said, at your service. Then the king said, is there not still someone of the house of Saul to whom I may show the kindness of God?
Come on.
And Ziba said to the king, there is still a son of Jonathan who is lame in his feet. So the king said to him, where is he? And Ziba said to the king, indeed he is in the house of Machir, the son of Amiel in Lodebar. The king said, send. The king David sent and brought him out of the house of Machir, the son of Amiel, from Lodebar. Now, when Mephibosheth, the son of Jonathan, the son of Saul, had come to David, he fell on his face and prostrated himself. Then David said, Mephibosheth, and he answered, here is your servant. So David said to him, do not fear, for I will surely show you kindness for Jonathan, your father's sake. Oh man, this one I want you to tell your neighbors. Neighbor, there's some blessings that will come because of that man called Pastor Obedience Masakoma. There's some blessings that you don't qualify for. That is a lesson for another day, but you don't qualify for. It's only your servant of God who qualifies for you. And just because, for his sake, you know, I'm still reading. But let me stop right there. You look at me. I've traveled the whole world, and the reason why I traveled the world is not because I was popular or I was a good preacher. It was only because of who my father was.
Come on, man.
Doors that will just open because who your father is. Okay, let's leave that for another day. That's why I'm saying, if he doesn't invite me, tell him to invite me. You can see I still have a lot of stuff. Then he bowed himself and said, verse 8, what is your servant? What is your servant that you should look upon such a dead dog as I? And the king called to Ziba, Saul's servant, and said to him, I have given to your master's son all that belonged to Saul and to all his house. You therefore and your sons and your servants shall work the land for him, and you shall bring in the harvest, that your master's son may have food to eat. And Mephibosheth, your servant's son, shall eat bread at my table. Always. Now Ziba had 15 sons and 12 servants. Let's close our eyes for a word of prayer. Father God, reason through my mind and speak through my mouth. I pray. Amen. Amen. You may be seated. None of the statements that I made when we were reading has to do with what I'm coming to deliver to you today.
Okay, Bishop.
It was just to show you I have stock. And I want to come back. And soon. Ladies and gentlemen, I want us to, the two texts that we read, the one in 2 Samuel is my brother's favorite text. I won't make a mistake. There is no man who preach on that text like this one. The reason why I took it is because of a phrase. I only need a phrase. The rest of that scenario, I won't touch it. Because there is no man who preach on that text like this man. So I won't go to Mephibosheth. I want some people. There is just a phrase that I want, just one phrase. I just want to borrow one phrase. But we are introduced to Jesus by Luke. when he was coming to the end of his ministry.
Uh-huh.
Now I want you to understand the following. I want you to understand that the oldest gospel is the gospel of Mark. Now, Luke and Matthew wrote their gospels using Mark's gospel as a framework. Mark's gospel was influenced by Peter. Peter was the one who was telling Mark all the stories. Then Luke, because he was a Gentile, his father was a Greek when his mother was a Hebrew. So, because of the pride of the Jews, if you a Gentile and you are a man and you're a Gentile and you married a woman who was a Jew, it was taken that you are the one who has been married.
Okay.
Automatically you become a Jew. That is why they used to call them Hellenistic Jews. Yes. Now, Luke was that kind of a man. So Luke went and looked at the framework of Mark. And from there, Matthew did the same. But Luke, because he was very, very, very educated, he was a physician, he studied. He was a doctor, he held a doctoral degree. His things were a bit detailed. His gospel was a bit detailed. But you go to the gospel according to St. John, it's a whole different thing. Because the gospel of John was written later on. You're going to see how this affects what I'm bringing to you today. It was written later. That is why. You look at the gospel of Matthew, you look at the gospel of Mark, and you look at the gospel of Luke. They repeat almost the same things.
Yeah.
Yes. Because all of them are using Mark as the framework. But if you look at the gospel of John, it doesn't repeat a lot of things. Just few details, especially pertaining to the resurrection and the death of Christ. Only there. Why? Because John had to go study the gospel of Mark, Luke, and Matthew.
Okay.
So he didn't see the importance of repeating stuff that was already written. So you're going to see how it affects what I'm bringing to you today. Now, the Mount of Gethsemane. Jesus goes there with his disciples. And when he is there, the Bible says he speaks to his disciples and he says to them, stay here. This is according to Mark. Watch and pray that you may not enter into temptation. The Bible says he left them and he went a stone throw further where he prayed. But you read this according to St. Matthew and St. Mark. They say he took Peter and James and John with him. And when they came to a certain place, he told them to remain as he went further. Well, the details are important. The fact is, there was prayer going on. As to who was taken or was not taken, that was not important. And the Bible says, and Jesus got to this place, according to St. Luke, whom I want to use today as my key. He gets to this place, and when he gets there, he bows down and he started to pray. And Luke says he was full of agony. He was full of agony. He was full of pain. And he prayed agonizing. And as he prayed, Luke said, and his sweat became like blood. And those droplets fell on the ground as he prayed. And he said to God, God, if it is possible, take this cup and let it pass me.
Come on.
And after that, he says, but in this time, let not my will be done,
But your will.
but your will be done.
Hallelujah.
I want you to understand that the word Gethsemane simply means a place of crushing.
That's right.
It's a place of crushing because it was on top of a hill or mountain where it was a garden of olives. So whenever they would want to during harvest, they will go and harvest those olives. They had big rocks that they used to crush those olives.
Yeah.
Right in Gethsemane.
Now,
Now that's why the place is called a place of crushing.
yes, sir.
Look at your neighbor. That is enough for today. Let's look at something else.
My God.
If you are a student of law, you will be my witness that on your third year of study, you are introduced to a course that is called the law of evidence. That is if you are a student of law. And in the law of evidence, you are taught the principles of using facts to convince the judiciary to take verdicts based on facts. The facts that are presented to the judiciary before the judiciary take its verdict must be based on the facts that have been given, and that is called the laws of evidence. Now, the word evidence comes from a Latin word, evidentia, simply meaning to make clear, to bring to sight, to prove. That is the word. So, evidence is important in the court of law, because in the court of law, a verdict can never be passed. Nobody can never be found guilty beyond reasonable doubt without evidence.
That's right, sir.
There is no court if there is no evidence, because evidence is based on the law. Shake your neighbor and say, that's for another day. Now, Jesus puts us in trouble on that night. Tomorrow he opens a can of worms, which for us to deal with, we'll have to ignore some stuff. Because he goes there and prays, kneeling down, until his
came like blood.
Until his sweat becomes like droplets of blood. Look at your neighbor. What's your neighbor? That's a can of worms. Because a serious debate has risen from the School of Theology in 1965. But the question behind the text was, did Jesus sweat blood? Or his sweat became like blood? Let me go back. Did Jesus sweat blood? Or did his sweat became like blood? And the question was, if his sweat became like blood, I don't know if you sleep with me. If his sweat became like blood, all the gospel writers tell us that wherever he was praying, he was alone.
Come on, Bishop.
Now, if it became like blood, who saw it? Did he have to go back to them?
Show them the blood.
And tell them, I prayed this. My sweat became like blood.
Like blood. Yo.
Then the writers wrote it. Who saw it? Because even the three that the other gospel writer is saying he took with them, he left them somewhere. And he was alone. And if it became like blood, sweat doesn't stay on the skin for long. How did they trace it? Now, there has been a problem on the text. Because now it has been a serious problem on the text. That if his sweat became like blood. And the one will say, well, maybe they went to a place where he was praying because droplets fell, but they were not blood. They were sweat. Now, the other question would be, how does sweat like blood looks like? Yeah, shake your neighbor so you can sleep. It's okay, you can sleep as much as you want. How does sweat like blood looks like? And that has been a thought-provoking question to theology. But watch this. In 1965, the American Medical Association Journal, that is a journal of the American Medical Association, went to study the facts behind Jesus and Gethsemane. These were their findings. They believe that Jesus underwent a very rare condition. In this condition, it's a condition wherein the mind becomes under serious duress, serious pressure, to a point where whatever is in the mind feels like it's happening to the body, literally.
Okay.
Whatever that the mind is feeling, the pressure is so much. And this kind of duress has been spotted in two occasions, in World War I and in World War II, wherein soldiers who were going to fight will be so terrified that the pressure of their terror in the mind will affect their bodies, literally. They will feel what they are thinking.
Okay.
Look at your neighbor. Say, neighbor, the pressure was too much. Look at the one behind you and say, the duress was too much. Now, the American Medical Association had a name for this condition.
Okay.
They called it, they still call it, hematodrosis. Those of you who are in the medical field, you will know what I'm talking about. Now, hematodrosis is a word that has been built out of two Greek words. It has been built out of the word haima, meaning blood, and hydros, meaning sweat. Now, when you put the two words together, you come up with hematodrosis.
Okay.
Now, in everyone, right in our sweat glands, all our sweat glands are surrounded by blood vessels, tiny blood vessels right next to our sweat glands. Now, whenever the brain goes to shock and pressure for a long time or for a certain period, those veins swell up to a point where they burst. And when they burst, the blood leaks into sweat pores.
Okay.
When they leak into the sweat pores, where the sweat is supposed to come out, blood comes out. Now the question is, did his sweat became blood? Or it became like blood?
Come on, Bishop.
Now, Luke is the one who comes up with all these things. Tell your neighbor, you can sleep. There's no problem. Tell your neighbor, you can sleep. Bishop doesn't have a problem with people sleeping when he's preaching. Now, when Luke speaks about the sweat of Jesus, he doesn't use the words that the rest of the gospel writers use. Instead, he uses a medical term, hydros. That is a medical term. Now, in the phrase where he says, became like blood, he uses the phrase athamboy, meaning this thing was not something that happened and was meant to be taken metaphorically. It was something that was meant to be taken literally. Bishop, what are you saying? Jesus, Luke says he was in so much agony. The veins that surrounds his sweat glands busted. And when they busted, blood came out through sweat pores. Meaning if that blood was coming out, my question is, how many sweat pores do you have in the whole of your body? Now, let's come with the evidence. When he came back, blood, even though it dries, it leaves a mark.
Come on, Bishop.
Meaning all these things happened all over his body.
Yeah.
And definitely wherever the sweat pores were, and the sweat pores brought out blood, some of the blood mingled in his clothes. Some of the blood was on his face. And when he went back to the disciples, there was a doctor called Luke. He said, I know this condition. This man was praying in agony. And it's rare.
Come on.
That is why when it comes to that, he doesn't use the language that is used by the rest of the gospel writers. He used a medical language. He uses a medical language. He says, I know this is hematodrosis. This man has been shedding blood. I don't know, this is not on the Bible, it's not recorded anywhere, but I think he might have ran to where Jesus was. And he might have spotted the place by the drops
Of the blood.
which were still there.
Okay.
Now, Jesus' sweat didn't become like.
They were blood.
It was blood. Because his body was getting ready.
Woo. Come on, Bishop.
To release blood. This time it was coming out in droplets, but it was getting ready to be shed.
Come on. Oh my God.
It was getting ready to be shed.
Oh, my kidding.
And when he came out,
Hey,
Luke was like, oh God.
he's ready.
Matthew didn't see that.
Come on, Bishop.
Matthew might have been asking, what were you doing? Were you putting lipstick on your face? What's going on with you? And Luke was like, no. I know this condition. I studied. And it's a rare condition. It doesn't happen. Why was it a rare condition? Because Jesus was coming to do something that has never been done. Now, watch this. Then he gets back. He gets back to the disciples.
My God.
And immediately he gets back. A man leading an army of soldiers was approaching. And when the man arrived, he said, oh, my brother. And he ran.
Kissed him.
And he kissed him. He made a mistake. He kissed the blood.
Hey!
You can't kiss the blood and get away with it. He went right where the shirt first touched. And he kissed right there.
Jesus.
And Jesus said to me, how can you betray the Son of Man?
With a kiss.
With a kiss. Do you know what Jesus was saying? You can't betray the blood. And watch this. The devil was thinking of the blood that was going to flow on the cross. But he didn't know that the blood started in Gethsemane. It started in prayer. Can someone hear? Can someone hear? And the Bible says that they took him. According to St. John says, and they asked him, who is Jesus? In fact, Jesus asked them, what do you want? He said, I want Jesus. He said, I am he. And they all fell down. And the Bible doesn't tell us where Judas was at this time. They rose up again. He asked them the same question. It happened 3 times. And they were all just falling down. The Bible says, until one of them, go and read all the Gospels. Now, what I was telling you in the beginning comes in. Go and read all the Gospels. All the Gospels will tell you that until one of them, it doesn't say who, took a sword and cut the official of the ear of the official of the chief priest. Matthew, Mark, Luke never mentioned who it was. But John.
Yes, sir.
But John. You know why? Because by the time that John was writing, it wouldn't put nobody in trouble. But by the time that Mark was writing, Luke was writing, and John was writing, and Matthew. If they had mentioned the name,
somebody was going to be arrested.
Somebody was in trouble. And the Bible says, and Jesus said, what are you doing? Did you know that? Don't you know that those who live by the sword will die by the sword? And And the Bible says, and he took the ear and put it back. Look at your neighbor. Say, neighbor, whose ear was it? That's another story. Whose ear was it? Now the ear belonged to a man who was called Malchus. You won't find him in the text. You will only find him if you visit Jewish historian. I think even John mentioned him. Yeah. Now, Malchus was the PA of Caiaphas.
Okay.
Yeah. The chief priest. The man who was in charge with the whole crucifixion. Now, Peter takes a sword and cut the ear of the assistant to the high priest.
There's a word right.
And David says, who else is left from the house of Jonathan? And the commander of his army says, no, there's a boy who is lame. He is Jonathan's son, but he is inaudible in the house of Machir, because he is lame. And David says, please go and take him, bring him. I just want to steal a phrase. I want to eat with him at my table.
Come on, Bishop.
Always.
Always. Yes. I love that. I want to eat with him at my table.
Always.
Always. Oh. And they took him and they brought him, and he fell down prostrate. And he said, what have I done wrong to you, King? He said, no, you've done nothing wrong. I want to show you kindness for my brother's sake. From today, I want to eat with you on my table.
Always.
And Jesus said, why? What? Peter, why do you have to take the sword at this time and cut a man's ear?
Come on, Bishop.
And Jesus took the ear and put it back. And the question is, what was Jesus doing? What Jesus was doing had nothing to do with healing.
Okay.
Was healing nobody.
Uh-huh.
Jesus was not healing nobody. He took the ear that was down. The man was frustrated, but he was not healing him, because for that time he had nothing to do with him. He had nothing to do with Malchus. Malchus was on the side of Caiaphas. He had nothing to do with Malchus. But yet he had to take the ear and put it back.
Hey.
Because courts are about evidence. And if there is no evidence, the rule of the law of evidence says that there cannot be a conviction. And we have different kinds of evidence. We have clear evidence. We have opinion evidence. We have different kinds of evidence.
Come on.
And Jesus took the ear because there was real evidence that Peter the servant of the high priest.
Come on.
And attempted murder to Jewish law had the same penalty with murder.
Come on.
Now Jesus saw
Amen.
that is going to be a problem now. This boy has messed up. Whatever he has messed up is in the eyes of everybody. Everybody has seen what he did. And the fact of the matter is we have tangible evidence. The ear is down. But there is what I can do. Let me take the ear back in. The reason why I'm taking the ear back in is because I want to close up the evidence in court. Even if Malchus go to court or to the chief priest and say, Peter did this to me, he will ask, where is the evidence? Where is the evidence? Because if you're saying he cut your ear is still in your hand. And David said, from today onward, Mephibosheth, you are lame and you are paralyzed. But you are going to eat with me at my table.
Always.
Always. Why at my table? Because I know that when you are at my table, you will be seated. And when you are seated, everybody who comes to the table will never have an evidence that your legs are lame because you'll be at my table. That's why David says, for he prepares a table before me. Why does he prepare a table before me? He prepares a table because not for me to eat only, but to hide my crippled legs. Oh God, I don't know what I'm talking to right now. He prepares a table because he wants to hide some stuff. And he says to Peter, why did you do it? Though you did it, yet I will close the evidence of what you did. I'm about to go to the cross now, and the reason why I'm going to the cross is because I have to destroy some evidence. Oh, I'm here to tell somebody that you have now a right to approach the throne room of God. Because there is no more evidence of what you did last Sunday. There is no more evidence of whom you have offended now. There is no more evidence of your sin because Malchus' ear is back on his head. Oh God, give your neighbor a high five. That's what I preach. As a neighbor, when he went to the cross, he didn't just go to the cross. He went there to destroy some evidence. Oh, that's why David says, I will enter his gates with thanksgiving in my heart. I will enter his courts with praise. Give your neighbor a high five and say, neighbor, you have a reason now to shout for joy because there is no more evidence. You have a reason now to pray in tongues. There is no more evidence. The evidence of your abortion is no longer there. The evidence of your theft is no longer there. The evidence of everything that you did in secret is no longer there. Because the blood that saved me is the same yesterday. It's the same today. It's the same forever. And if you're gripping the high five, I say, hey, my brother, my sister, there is no more evidence. You can shout for joy. There is no more evidence. You can praise God with a shout. The blood was shed on the cross. Weeping was for a night. But now is time for your joy. Because now is the morning of your life. Oh, can you type with me? And say, Malchus is back on his head. I know what the table does. When you try to go to pray, it will remind you of everything that you did wrong. But I'm And Jesus shouted with a loud voice and said, it is finished. There is no longer judgment. There is no longer condemnation. For he that is in Christ is a new creation. Can I push this one out there? The old is gone, but the new has come. For I go and doing a new thing. Though you walk through the valley of the shadow of death, this time you must fear no evil. For I have prepared a table before you to hide your legs, to hide your weaknesses, to hide your poverty, to hide your sin. Under my blood, I have the power that is above every power. I have a name that is above every name. You call on this name, every knee shall bow, every tongue shall confess. The blood, 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 the blood is coming out from the whole body. Oh God, my sister, don't condemn yourself now. You are too late to condemn yourself. There is no evidence of what you did. You are too late to put yourself down. There is no evidence of what you did. Because if God be for you, God, come on now. If God be for you, who can dare be against you? If God says yes, who can say no? If God say up, you can say down. I want you to have to tell people, tell them no more evidence. You are free. You are free. No more evidence. Praise the Lord. No more evidence. Worship the Lord. No more evidence. You must get your job now. No more evidence. You must drive your car now. No more evidence. You must get your promotion. God is not judging you. He doesn't judge no man. God loves you the way you are. There is nothing that you can do to try to impress God. Well, but he says, if my people, and I wish this one out there, who are called by my name, shall humble themselves and seek my face that was destroyed on the cross. On that day, when he was hanging, my sin was hanging, my poverty was hanging, my condemnation was hanging, my weaknesses were hanging. And it's by the blood. It is by the blood. The blood of Jesus. Oh, oh, oh. Yeah. The devil is alive. I feel the glory of the Lord. The glory of the Lord is in the room. The power of the Lord is in the house. Oh, yes, 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 Lord. We glorify your name. We lift your name up. You are forgiven. You are loved. You are important. You are high and lifted up. You are glorious and mighty. Jesus, Jesus. Oh, God. Forget about your neighbor. And I want us to shout 3 times.
Yes.
No more evidence.
Yeah.
You will never know the the importance of a missing document
Yeah.
until you are guilty.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I want to talk to some guilty people in this place. Jesus says there is no more evidence. I have covered everything for you. You don't need to worry. You don't need to walk in shame anymore. Everything has already been taken. When I said it was finished, it was also finished.
Thank you.
I want us to shout. Shout for your family.
Yeah.
Shout for your job.
Yeah.
Shout for your business. No more evidence. Are you ready to shout? Are you ready to shout in the name of Jesus? I'm going to count to 2 and I want us to shout for the first time. We're going to shout 3 times. No more evidence. 1, 2. Some of you, the devil has been condemning you. The devil has been after you and telling you that the Lord can't use you. Who are you? How can the Lord use them if it's Portia? How can the Lord use you when you are too lame? You have been lame in your finances. You have been lame in your relationship. You have been lame in your employment. But the Lord has come to speak to you tonight. There is no more evidence. I want you to shout for the second time. 1, 2. You need to believe it tonight that you are coming out of this place a new person. You are coming out of this place not the same way you came. Whatever evidence the enemy has been using, the Lord is destroying it right now. Whatever evidence the enemy has, the Lord is consuming it. The Bible says he's a consuming fire. He's a consuming fire. If he can burn the stones, he can burn the evidence. If he can burn the water, he can burn your every water. No more evidence. I say no more evidence. Come on. Who are you trying to show up? There's no more evidence. I want us to shout for the last time. And for the last time, at the end of it, I want us to give God the praise. Give God the glory. That the docket has gone missing. The enemy, the devil, cannot accuse you anymore. Because he's got no docket anymore. Shake your neighbor and say, neighbor, he's got no docket anymore. Are you ready to shout? Are you ready to shout? Some of you. Please go back to the doctor that tested you. Before they do that operation, please ask them to test again. Because some of you tonight, the Lord has misplayed the docket of that sickness. That sickness is disappearing out of your body. In the name of Jesus Christ. Let me tell you something. You don't need to feel it. You need to believe it. You need to believe it. Shake your neighbor and say, neighbor. You need to believe it. Are you ready? 1,